Alright, so the first thing you're going to need to do this is the recovery ISO. These are the file names of the recoveries ISO versions that I was able to find. You may be able to find other ones, but these were kind of a pain. So drop these into Google and add download and see if you can't find it pretty quick. Once you've got your ISO, you want to mount it or burn it, and then on that disk or image you're going to see this setup exe file. Run that, and you have the options for recreate, unlock, perform recovery. We want to do recreate because we're going to wipe the RAID array away. RAID array away, yes. Click on recreate my storage. You'll see the little picture doesn't change. It's a bug in the thing. I don't know why. Anyway, hit next. I understand that it's going to wipe all my stuff. It's going to ask us for the drive. Yep, that's the one I want. I understand that. And now it's going to create a little mini Windows, what's called Windows PE environment, and that's going to automate a RAID creation. So when this is finished, we're going to take the drive, plug it back into the NAS, and fire it back up in recovery mode, and it should error, but it's going to help us, and I'll show you how here in just a minute. Alright, it's done copying what it needs to, so we can click finish, and it's going to tell us what we need to do on our NAS once we plug it back in. So we'll take that out there, and I'll show you what I've done to that so that we can get these SSDs set up in there. And now before you take it out there, you need to do one quick thing. Where was it here? This recovery config XML file, do yourself a favor and copy this and save it to your C drive. I've already copied it before, so I've got it. This is another copy I have going. I'm going to show you this booting in the NAS unit here, and you'll see what's going to happen when it tries to run. Alright, we're back out here in the shop. I've got the NAS torn apart on the workbench here. You can see I've got a pair of 250 gigabyte Crucial SSDs in here. To get them in, you have to go in and take out these little metal spring-loaded, I don't know what you would call it, tabs, I guess. And those are used to push the drive back out the front of the NAS if you have full-size drives in it. If you had the little caddies that turn the 2.5 drives into a 3.5 format, you could put that in, and that will save you from having to pull those out. Mine are just in there loosey-goosey because I don't have the little adapters, and we're on a budget here. So what I've done is taken those tabs out, which requires taking this board off, and I'll show you where you get to those. So you take that little tab off there, the whole board comes out, and see these little metal, there's your little metal spring-loaded clips here. They come off real easy, a little spring, take it off the hook, tab comes out, Bob's your uncle. Put your board back in, just like so. It's good and seated. Then our ribbon cable goes back in. And then we take our little USB drive that we made earlier. That goes into one of the USB ports on the back here. It doesn't matter which one. And then we're going to need our power cord, and then something small and tiny to fit down inside this hole. And that hole is the reset hole. If you've ever used like a Linksys or D-Link router at home, they have these little reset buttons. When you turn it on, you hold that button in, and it'll reset the thing to the factory settings. In this case, it tells it to boot off the little USB drive, and then the Windows installer takes over from there and does its automated process. So we're going to plug our power in, hold that button, and on the front it says startup initializing. Processing. Processing. There we go. Okay, so now that it says it's loading the recovery, you're going to let it sit for another minute or two. During this process, it's booting off that little USB drive, and then it's going to do an automated RAID creation, or it's going to try to do a automated RAID creation. It should fail, and when it does, I'll show you how we get around that failure. So if you're doing this with the actual proper compatible factory drives that Western Digital recommends with this unit, you don't have to go through any of this fuckery that we're going to do with whitelist files and making the thing work. You just run this recovery process and it will wipe the drives, or it should successfully wipe the drives and get you back up and running just like it should from the factory. Alright, so our recovery is initializing. Checking storage. And we should be getting a failure here in just a second. Okay, invalid drive count. And that's fine. That's the message that we actually want to see. And well, you may ask, why is that? Well, because it doesn't have enough drives to build a RAID array, because it doesn't like the drives that are built into it. Now I'm going to show you how we figure out what the problem is and then how we get around it. So we're going to shut it down, and then we're going to take the USB drive back in and plug it into the computer. So with the USB drive plugged back in, we're going to open it up. We're going to look in the WD recovery folder, and here we have the recovery.log, and this is a plain text log file of everything the recovery did. So what we're going to look for is the failure, which is right here. And it tells us the serial number of the drive, and it tells us the model number of the drive. And it says it doesn't match anything in the whitelist. And if you look at the top of the file here, we can see where it's loaded this whitelist file. That file is on our USB drive. So what we're going to do to get around that, because we have to match that model number here in that whitelist file. So what I did is I copied this model number. And you have to do, if you have the same model drive that you're putting in there, just a bunch of them, you only have to put it in once. If you're putting in several different models that aren't compatible, you'll have to add every single one to this file. But you can see in the same directory, under this WD recovery, we have the whitelist XML file. And it's actually nice because it tells us this is the list of compatible drives. So there's no ambiguity there. So what we need to do is we're going to change out, actually I'm not even going to change out, we're just going to add our own line to this, which I've already done. Nope, do not save it. Right here. So we just follow the same format as the other entries. We just adjust for the actual amount of storage space on the drive. This is the real size of it, not the... Yeah, it's a bunch of bullshit between 1000 and 1024 measuring with manufacturers and reality, and it's a bunch of crap. The gist of it is this actually works out to be the real size of the 250 gig drive. And then we have our crucial model number that we copied from the file, from the log file. So what we're going to do now, we have the whitelist XML file modified. We're going to copy that, take it over to here, go back into the recovery file. We're going to delete, actually we need to unarchive and unread only because it won't let us do it otherwise. So we're going to delete this and paste our new whitelist XML file. We're also going to take the recovery.log, rename it, just so we have it for reference. And then when we rerun the process, it's going to create a new recovery log file for us. And then the last thing we're going to do, we don't need this anymore, is we're going to take that copy of the recovery config XML file that we made, the one I said it would delete, which is now gone, and then we're going to put it back into this directory as well. So now what should happen is we're going to take this USB drive, plug it back into the NAS unit, and start the recovery one more time. However, this time it should read our updated whitelist XML file, and that should let the format complete successfully. Alright, we're back out in the shop. We've got our new whitelist XML file on the USB drive. So we're going to plug that in. And the same process as last time. We're going to give it power and then hold that reset button. There you go. And from here it's just a waiting game once again. We're going to hold the button until we see that it's starting the recovery, and then we can let that little button on the back go. Okay, there goes the recovery. And then just like last time, we're going to sit here and basically just watch it and make sure that it doesn't error out. I should probably take this moment to put out a disclaimer saying that I am not responsible if you've somehow destroyed your NAS in this process or somehow otherwise screwed it up. This obviously isn't covered under any sort of warranty, express or implied, blah 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 blah. You also may be breaking the DMCA in some way by doing this, since we're circumventing some sort of protection thingy. So yeah, do it at your own risk, I guess, or whatever. Alright, our recovery is initializing. We're checking storage. Cleaning storage, that's good. Creating storage. Alright. And verifying, cool. So, it was able to create the RAID. It's now going to check and make sure the RAID's there. And now it says recreate storage was a success. Cool, so now what we need to do is take that USB drive back, and we're going to run it one more time. Or we're going to run the recovery process on it one more time, but instead of the recreate storage option, we're going to tell it that we're going to recover our unit. And that will put the actual Windows installer on the drive. So let's go do that, and then I'll show you how that restore works. Okay, so now we have the USB drive plugged back into the computer. If we look in the WD recovery folder, we now have a new recovery.log file. And if we look for the right line here, there it is. Now we matched our drive model with the entry in the whitelist. So the entire rest of the process worked fine. You can look through this all if you want to. It tells you every little step that it went through, the RAID level that it created, all that good stuff. We don't really care because it was successful, but it's there if you want to do your own digging and play around with it. So now what we need to do is go back to our recovery ISO. We're going to run the setup again. And this time we're going to tell it to do a recovery. There's this option here. Again, just like the recreate storage, when you click on it, you don't see anything happen, but it is doing it. Click next. We don't want to skip creating it because we need it. Okay, it's going to tell us that it needs the USB drive, which is fine, and it's going to re-wipe the drive. I understand you're going to delete everything that's ever important to me off that drive. Say next. And now it's going to do another format and copy of all the data on that drive. Alright, it's done creating our USB drive, so we can click next. Okay, so the recovery is completed up. We're going to hook up the NAS back up on the network, because the next process that we do will need the network connection to finish up the configuration. But before you pull the USB drive out, we need to copy a file again, because what they do is they overwrite the whitelist XML file on the recovery drive it just made. Here's our the whitelist XML file, and you can see our crucial drive is now gone again. So you have to overwrite this file one more time before you do the second recovery, otherwise it will fail again too. We're going to paste that in, and that should be it. So now you can take that USB drive, we're going to start the NAS back up and let it do its process. Again, it's all automated until we get the message we're looking for on the front display. So now I've got our USB drive back in the NAS. We're going to start it up and then hold that little pin on the back again. And then once we see the recovery starting, then we can let the pin go. Okay, so now it's loading the recovery. Okay, recovery started. So now we hit next. It's going to go find our server. It says it was successful. And the screen doesn't show you real well what it's saying. Let's see if we can't refocus that a little bit. Now you can restore from a backup if you have a backup. I don't. We're just wiping and starting from scratch. So we're just going to say reset to the factory defaults. Click next. You have the option to not delete your data, or we have the option to delete everything. We're going to delete everything because we don't care. The drive should be empty anyway. I understand that it's going to wipe everything away for the last time. Hit next. It's going to give you kind of a summary of what it's going to do. It says, hey, by the way, we're going to wipe out all your crap. Do you care? We don't, so we're going to hit next. And now it's going to actually start the real recovery process. Let's see, we got some drive activity on the RAID here. So from here on out, you're just going to sit back and let the thing do its thing. So once the restore is complete, you can go to its IP address, which it lists on the little panel here. And you'll get this download and run setup wizard. We'll run that. And apparently you always need to allow pop-ups for the thing. There we go. So here we're getting our options for the Windows language, a few other options that we'll get to set here. Yep, we are English. Date and time looks good. I accept to sign my soul away. Alright. So here you can give it its host name if you want to change it, or you can leave it, whatever. We're going to call it NAS. A password, this will be the administrator password for the box. Yes, I'm one of those people that erases the entire password to retype it. And we're not going to worry about updates right now. And it's going to do the last step of the configuration here. And you can see the LCD is telling us what it's doing too. Alright, the whole configuration's finished. It says our server's ready. You can do this NAS :connect. Well, you can't see it in the browser, but this is if you want to bring it down here. You can see here. Oops. Oh, way to dick that up, genius. Now that the setup's done, you can get this connect your computer to the server. That's at your NAS :65510/connect. Or just NAS/connect will bring up the same page. You can download the software for it. At this point, we just want to get into it to verify everything's good. And then we need to use the hostname /administrator. And then the password that you set earlier. That gets you in. There's the desktop for our NAS unit. Go to the properties here. We have the Atom, quad-core 1.8 gigahertz, 2 gigs of RAM, 64-bit OS. Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials. Well, I think that about concludes it. We've shown that everything works. You can add more or less drives to it after the fact. If you add the The Western Digital drives themselves, no problem, the actual certified ones. If you want to add drives that are not the Western Digital approved drives, it will still kick them out because the software that runs in Windows won't let you do it. So what you have to do if you want to add the non-certified drives, if you go into the control panel, uninstall a program, and the Western Digital storage provider, if you remove that, you can use whatever driver you want. You can use the Intel Rapid Storage driver, and it'll let you create that one. Just the generic IRST software will let you do it. It replaces the RAID controller that Western Digital is using, or the software for the RAID controller, excuse me. But that'll work. The only problem is once you do that, you won't get the notification lights, the red lights on the little panel here if the drives have failed. So you'll have to monitor the RAID yourself some other way. Otherwise, that's how you do it. If somebody knows how to fix it after Windows is installed so you can add drives not on the whitelist, I'd be happy to hear it. I've tried several methods I've found online, but none of them have worked. So we're just going to kind of holding pattern there. But as a proof of concept, we can show that this works. Or if you want to add other drives to it, you now know how to. But that's about it. From here on out, you can treat it just like any old Western Digital NAS. I figured out a way to run Linux on this. I just need to finish up that video. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you found this at least somewhat informational and maybe even slightly entertaining. Please feel free to leave any comments, concerns, or questions down in the little thingy below the video. Thank you and have a good week.